here from what we're used to. Boeufmac out of his closing position into the leadoff spot for King of the Hill. Then Hazard and ThunderStruck. LaPoKaTi also making the move to the #1 spot with RF and then Royal in the 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, switching things up for King of the Hill here in your last, or tentatively last match makes sense, and we'll see how these guys like their new positions. It does feel like taking the pressure off your 1v1 specialist in Boeufmac could be a great idea, or maybe he's just looking to come back and repeat what he's done before to Immortals and get a nice sweep to start their day.
Yeah, currently 6-0 in King of the Hill over the CRL West Spring and Fall Season 2 back-to-back sweeps, one in playoffs of last spring season with Team Liquid, and of course to open up this season as well.
So Valkyries from both sides, which makes a ton of sense. Valkyrie has been so popular lately with the amount of splash troops out there, the ability to counter the wall breakers.
And Tornado with the Valkyrie and Executioner, so a lot pulled together to get taken care of. And LaPoKaTi does not break through. Healthy Furnace still on the board for Boeufmac. Boeufmac, of course, has been fantastic all around this season. 13 and 6 in King of the Hill, 9 and 6 in 1v1 games. That King of the Hill success, a lot of it coming from Royal Giant decks, 7 and 0 with Royal Giant on this season.
Yeah, Royal Giant was something that we saw so much of early on in the season, and then Fishermen became more popular, so we saw a little bit less Royal Giant. Then Royal Recruits became more popular, so we saw less Fishermen, and now we've been seeing these Royal Giant Executioner decks quite a bit.
LaPoKaTi has also been playing a lot of Royal Giant this season, 6 and 3. Of course, not looking like it this time around, but we'll see what Boeufmac has in store. Furnace could mean a lot of things. And Lapo going right to the middle front with that miner, picked up easily by the Valkyrie.
Yeah, really nice pickup there from both. And starting to stack those furnaces on the board.
Both players with sharp defense in the opening minute and a half of gameplay. 30 seconds left in regulation.
And you can see the head-on damage that LaPoKaTi has going into one lane with the Valkyrie Executioner, the NATO ability. That's why LaPoKaTi is, or why Boeufmac is playing his furnaces in opposite lanes, just to create pressure so that Lapo just can't build big beat-down pushes.
Graveyard down, and you see LaPoKaTi sitting on that poison until it gets exposed. Easily takes care of the Graveyard, and Lapo does have a lot of answers for what Boeufmac wants to get done offensively.
This time Miner does get through, and Valkyrie tanks for just half a second.
Executioner goes right, so Boeufmac loads up Witch to the left-hand side. Valkyrie down in response, and he can play that Valkyrie high because Poison will take care of the Graveyard for him.
The Mega Minion and the Wish work right through the Valkyrie, however, and now a decent push here on the left for Boeufmac. He should get some... Oh, and back around to Valkyrie is LaPoKaTi.
Oh, but the Valkyrie just a little bit too low, does not get on the Witch. So the Witch still on board, forcing out another Executioner.
And Lapo doing the correct thing. Instead of dealing with those troops, he had to get the poison down to kind of deal with everything. Obviously, some misplays there leads to this massive chunk taken out of the left-hand side.
Suddenly, Boeufmac roars into the lead, and LaPoKaTi playing Miner Chip, going to be very hard to battle back in these final 2 minutes. Has to do that a few more times, gets some success, a couple hundred damage on that right-hand tower for LaPoKaTi, and deals with the push of Boeufmac on the left-hand side, so Boeuf goes ahead and switches lanes.
Yeah, you got a very, very healthy Valkyrie there. It should get right on through to the tower, and Lapo looks like he's going to ignore a lot of that damage. not able to get the King Tower activation. Nato not played where he needed it. And that one hurts.
Boeufmac loading up with the Furnaces left-hand side, keeping pressure on that low tower. Does have options on the right-hand side. Very easy to switch lanes with this Graveyard deck. Not so much for Lapo.
Yeah, Lapo having a really difficult time managing this Graveyard push, this dual lane pressure. You see him having to continue to use his Ice Spirit just to catch the Fire Spirits to prevent damage on his tower, which, again, such a high utility card and one that LaPoKaTi is so good with. Not able to use it where he wants.
And we might see, nope, he goes Graveyard left-hand side one more time, and you see LaPoKaTi's being forced to spend that poison on defense. It's not even getting that much done. Graveyard, or King Tower activation, but is that too little too late with 30 seconds left?
Yeah, I mean, he went for it before, and he's getting some good damage in now, and a very nice Miner catch, and that seems to do it right there. You saw LaPoKaTi throw his head up. He needed that Miner to connect, and with 20 seconds left, Energy in a very, very good position on a 4-game win streak, and here we go.
Miner comes in, not going to be enough. LaPoKaTi doesn't lose the tower, but doesn't get one back either, and there you have it. Oh, Boeufmac does take it down in the end, and that's game number 1. Boeufmac continues on a 7-game King of the Hill streak over Immortals.
Yeah, it's tough playing a Miner control deck against someone as good as Boeufmac because it basically means you can never mess up any interaction. And as soon as Lapo made that small defensive mistake, you saw Boeufmac pile it on in the top left, the Graveyard, the 2 units alive. You saw Lapo had to go high poison and NATO units away, and he took a beating in that one exchange.
Yeah, very tough to fight from behind with this kind of deck, especially against a man the caliber of Boeufmac, who has been so nasty this season. He's practically become a Twitter meme amongst the competitive scene over the course of the second half of this season.
I mean, when you're that good, when you've shown it that many times in the highest pressure situations, how could you not tip your hat to the Englishman?
LaPoKaTi down. Up next, the God RF. Just saw his teammate lose to Graveyard. Of course, God RF, typically a Graveyard specialist throughout his career.
And with that win, that puts Boeufmac on a nice 6-game win streak in King of the Hill. 7, actually. 6, excuse me.
And there has not been a ton of Graveyard play from Boeufmac this season. I believe that was the 2nd time he's busted it out. To very nice success, looking like something different here. And RF going Miner Witch thus far.
Be interested to see a Mega Knight coming out from RF as well. But the Valkyrie is going to be his tank for the day.
And Mega Knight just rips through the Witch, rips through the Valkyrie, and now RF in a heap of trouble.
Yeah, that snowball coming in now. RF, nothing to take out those skeletons. Lucky he had that zap.
But with that tanking by the Mega Knight, one skeleton does a ton of extra damage, down to 1674 on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it would have been really nice for RF to play that Valkyrie a little bit lower on his side of the map, get some help from that Princess Tower, and obviously hindsight is 20/20, but now he knows what he's up against. We'll see how he adjusts.
And this is smart for Boeufmac. Hasn't played a lot of Graveyard this year. Probably teams aren't preparing to play Graveyard against a Graveyard specifically with him.
And you know Energy's planning on winning, as is every team that comes in here today, and trying to save that deck pool from your comfort decks and throw people off from the very beginning of your match day is a very nice strategy.
A good chunk taken out by RF on the right-hand side, down to 940 or 1940 as we move into double elixir. And interesting, Boeufmac going naked Graveyard left-hand side, opening up a lot of opportunities, spending 5 elixir, and this balloon should get to tower. Yeah. Snowball not available.
Definitely will, because that snowball was used up high, so was not able to get the balloon off tower, was not able to take out the bats on his Graveyard, and all of a sudden RF looks to be in a fantastic position.
Maybe a rare mental lapse from Boeufmac. That was a strange graveyard on the left-hand side, completely unsupported, nothing behind it. Hadn't seen the last card of the God RF yet, and suddenly RF is going to take Boeufmac off the board in our second game of King of the Hill.
Well, yeah, and that last card had to be a win condition. Now, unless RF was just going to go minor control, which is not really his forte, you have to think as Boeufmac, there's got to be something else heavy hitting left in that deck, whether it's RG, whether it's Balloon, probably not going to be Graveyard, but you saw there, RF saw the moment, he drops the Balloon down, an early high snowball from Boeufmac, not available to clean up the bats for his own Graveyard. The naked Graveyard, as you said, unsupported, ends up just being a waste of Elixir, and Boeufmac wishes he could get that one back.
And you can see him shaking his head, knows he threw there at the end and kind of gave one away, but now the door open for Immortals. They still have RF on the tower, they have Royal in the wings, and now they've gotten through Boeufmac. 2 more outs, Hazard and ThunderStruck.
Yeah, that's where you talk about pressure. A rare mental mistake from Boeufmac. He was firmly in the lead, did not need to create the pressure in that left-hand lane. He had plenty of time, and everyone makes mistakes, and today Boeufmac made his. RF up next against Hazard, who has been 4-6 on the season in King of the Hill, but has really started to improve his showings in this set in the later half.
Hazard has played a fair share of King of the Hill this season, 10 games, 3 of those he's run Balloon to the tune of 1 and 2. Other than that, pretty decent deck variability from Hazard this season, including some Expo play. And RF, I know it's only 1 card. Oh no, never mind. I was going to say he's had a lot of 2.9 play himself this season, but with that zap, not what he's playing.
Hazard just hanging tight here. RF going to cycle.
So 2 of the most recent meta-defining cards back-to-back for RF, Fisherman and Witch. And there you go, Royal Giant for RF.
Nice snowball there to make sure the Witch is out of play, but minions come in to support that Royal Giant.
And that was a perfect distance on that Fisherman. You saw almost turned away and then turned right back at the last second.
So both these gentlemen managing their micro very well early on.
It's been slow going so far with the first minute and a half of play away, and you see Giant down for Hazard.
Yeah, Giant Miner has been so popular as of late. We'll see if Hazard will have the Giant Miner plus the Witch combo. It just ends up being devastating on the front end. You get the Miner in the back after the Giant's in, and Miner ends up tanking for the Witch Skeletons once the Giant drops. So a very, very nice combination synergistically in the new meta.
And Snowball enough to get the Valkyrie out of the way for that Witch.
And the Witch just showing her strength once again.
And you see RF trying to predict that Fisherman, but the opposing Fisherman doesn't do that well for Hazard, and now down to 1660.
And there's the Miner coming in, and RF doing the correct thing and protecting his Royal Giant with the Fisherman, but kind of ends up sacrificing that Elixir.
Here we are, final 30 seconds of regulation. Hazard ahead by a little over 100 HP. Loading up Giant Witch at the river. Mega Minion in support as well.
And a very nice fireball from RF, hitting everything on the board from Hazard. And if that Witch connects, RF's in trouble.
Down to 642, a lot of trouble already, Andrew. Now we go into double Elixir time. Hazard in a good position to get a very important King of the Hill win.
And a really nice use of RF's skeletons there to make sure the Witch stayed off the tower. But as you said, trouble is someplace that he's already been very familiar with here in this game, as Hazard seems to be playing pretty perfectly.
Big time fireball zap in for RF, doing a lot of damage, down to 644, and picks up the Giant, changes lanes, but what does he have for the Miner?
And Hazard has to throw out the well played there. RF behind by just about 200 HP, needs to get another Royal Giant down.
Royal Giant into Giant. And Valkyrie to pick up the Fisherman.
A very nice
Wow.
Valkyrie. You had to expect it was coming in, and that should do it. RF needs one more shot or the fireball, and Hazard, you see the hands on the head. He should have known that RF would play a high card to pick up the Fisherman. It's the only way to stop that Royal Giant. RF knew it was coming.
Yeah, that's so tough because what do you do in that situation? That's the way you keep the Royal Giant off tower. Your only other option is to try to find some way to maybe sell out and get on tower and win the race. Instead, he gets the Fisherman picked up by the Valkyrie and ends up taking the loss and taking a seat.
Yeah, when you go up against someone you recognize, okay, they've only got one way to stop my win condition, so now stopping the Fisherman is the most important thing in RF's game plan. You see him execute it perfectly. Fisherman has nothing to pull, or at least not the RG that he wants to. So let's actually hop in and take a look at that replay for the last game and some heads-up plays by RF.
Yeah, a big-time heads-up play. He looked to be in a lot of trouble, and that Fisherman takes care of the Giant. And this isn't the best response to Miner, but you see the response from Hazard. Well played, and here we go, the final sequence, Andrew.
Yeah, so the Mega Minion comes down just to stop those minions, and RF goes, okay, if I drop an RG at the river, what does he have in response? It's the Fisherman off to the right. Hazard plays it because he has no other choice, and at that point, you just got a pretty healthy RG shooting away at your tower.
Yeah, you got to wonder what Hazard's cycle was at the moment, trying to figure out how do I stop this? How do I win this race? Couldn't put the speed on in those final seconds, and now we're facing a situation where RF could go 1, 2, 3 and send this to the 1v1 set.
So RF in a position to be the savior of his team here in King of the Hill, and it all comes back to that first game against Boeufmac for him, where he snuck that balloon in and started this great run.
Has not swept King of the Hill this season, but opened up last season in the spring with a 1-2-3 over Misfits.
And ThunderStruck showing earlier what was pretty evident that with just those cards play, it would be of a Double Dragon, but now with the new meta, you really never know.
Witch down, Fisherman in support. RF might be going with that Miner deck we saw earlier with Executioner and Valkyrie.
Wow. And you got to give a well played when you see that. Now, doesn't get a lot out of it, some oohs and ahs from the other teams watching, but a very nice play.
Yeah, a little flash for ThunderStruck in the early goings.
Yeah, it's also a confidence boost, right? When you go for a risky play like that, it pays off, lets you know your head's in the right space, and we'll see if ThunderStruck tries some more fancy stuff over this next game at King of the Hill.
Mega Knight down. ThunderStruck looking to build up something big on the left-hand side. And this deck with no explicit single target damage, gonna have to find creative ways to deal with that 7 Elixir Bruiser on the board.
Yeah, and luckily for RF here, he does have the Valkyrie, which is tanky enough and does enough damage to hang with the Mega Knight, whose single target DPS is nothing to write home about.
Here you go, Witch just out of range. Executioner takes enough steps forward.
And the pull in, but it does not actually get on top of the Goblin Cage, so a good amount of damage from that Royal Giant, and a healthy Executioner, an alive Executioner still on the board.
Yeah, it looked like Hazard didn't quite have his defense sorted out, deciding what he wanted to do in that moment. And now Graveyard's right into a poison. Mega Knight does get a leap, but Executioner still at over 50% health.
Yeah, knowing RF and the way he plays, it feels like that last card most likely is going to be Tornado, and still has not had to use it yet.
Good construction here from RF. Answers for the Witch, answers for wall breakers. If they were in here, you have to contend with wall breakers, it seems, no matter what. And here comes the Tornado. Royal Giant gets one big-time shot.
But now nothing on the board for RF. He's going to have to play this defense very, very well. Expect a high Valkyrie once that Fisherman crosses the river.
Mega Knight gets a big leap. Baby Dragon on tower. King Tower activation, but can he stop this damage?
The King Tower activation is not what he needed there. The Baby Dragon just so healthy now. ThunderStruck takes down RF with a defense that self-destructs in the final moments.
Wow. Unbelievably wow. It seemed like the God RF had everything sorted out, but in the end, could not deal with that counter push. Has to take care of the Mega Knight somehow. But in the end, you go from the frying pan directly into the fire.
Yeah, you wonder where the Valkyrie was, maybe just not having it quite in cycle, or maybe just not able to get to it in time. The Valkyrie being able to catch that Mega Knight would have been so much more effective than NATOing it to King Tower, because the Mega Knight still is going to tank for your 2 Princess Towers and the King Tower. You get a very healthy Baby Dragon in, and that is a very rough spot to be in for the God RF. And ThunderStruck stays strong throughout and ends up on top.
RF comes out and gets 2, so job done, and sets up his teammate for a 5th game of King of the Hill. Royal versus ThunderStruck, Immortals fighting for their lives. Immortals back to the wall. ThunderStruck could come in huge for his squad. Of course, not that concerned. Set in hand, Boeufmac in the wings for 1v1 if you need it. But ThunderStruck would love to close things out and save some decks and some effort from his teammate. And you see a little grin looking over at his bench. Maybe liking what he sees in these opening seconds.
Yeah, I'll be surprised to see what he's thinking. And we get the double spawner deck. We saw a little bit of this already, but not really to any success, and also not even really got to see what this deck was all about. Kind of got stomped on in its last matchup.
And Lightning gets a ton of value. This Mega Knight should get 1 swing if the Fire Spirits don't get there first, and never mind, Princess takes it off the board.
So here we go. Double spawner with the Goblin Giant. Can imagine we'll probably see a Witch. There she is.
Night Witch. Fireball Ewiz trying to take care of the Night Witch, but not going to do it. She's marching all the way up front. Ewiz finally pops her, but those bats going to do a lot of damage on tower.
Yep. It is pretty shocking how much the death spawn of those bats has changed the strength of the Night Witch. It seemed like a very, very small buff that could be somewhat negligible, but it's been proven to be one of the stronger buffs here. Maybe would have climbed our rankings when we went through that buff discussion from maybe 6th up to at least 4th.
Yeah, those of you who've been playing ladder and challenges have seen a lot more Golem lately than you have for the last couple of months. Goblin Giant down again, and you know, the discussion that people have been having a lot is about which players have adapted to the balance updates the fastest, and you see what Royal's playing here. It's almost just a little out of date.
Yeah, and you can imagine he's trying to go with something that's somewhat comfortable for him, but the times are a-changing, my friend, and you've got to adapt. And right now, ThunderStruck doing a great job with this clearly new meta Double Witch Goblin Giant double spawner deck.
I mean, Double Witch is so popular overall right now, so there's so many ways to make it useful. Fireball gets the building out from behind, and now still a Goblin Hut and Furnace down for ThunderStruck.
And Royal just having a very tough time figuring out where and when to create his push. And it's feeling like that last card is going to be Royal Giant. Just has not been able to play one yet.
Yeah, the lightning value has been extreme for ThunderStruck.
Oh, and that's going to do it. It feels like when you make a trade like that, you get your Furnace up in, and game's not over yet, but ThunderStruck now in such a massive advantage.
elixir and damage all going the way of the Scotsman. 2 minutes 30 left in sudden death overtime. Does not feel like that's going to be necessary.
Get the high E-Wiz this time to help clean up those bats, and once again with the lightning, and Royal just trying to hang on.
In spell range, Royal giving the good game. One more lightning will do it. No real effective way for a lightning block. And there you go, Royal Giant in desperation, but you got to imagine ThunderStruck is going to close this thing out in moments.
And today, the heroes of the match for Energy have got to be ThunderStruck and Hazard, doing a great job in the 2v2. Their 1v1 specialist falls early here in King of the Hill, but you get ThunderStruck to come out and put in some work, and Energy is moving on through the gauntlet.
An excellent performance from Energy.